I'm gonna get back to that story, Sonny. Just, just you listen to Boomer, great one. He's gonna tell you about how it was back in the olden days, back before fire, back when we walked uphill for everything. In fact, we didn't even have a concept of downhill because there was no downhill. Everything was uphill. We thought that was normal. We didn't even have a word for it because there was no alternative. It was uphill all the time. You just need to reach down and grab yourselves by your bootstraps and pull yourselves up, Sonny. Because when I was your age, I bought a house for $25,000. And I made that money on my paper route and bussing tables at the local cafe. And if I could do it, you can do it too. You just need to reach down and pull yourself up and just buckle up there, buckaroo. God, I hate boomers.
So, as you know, Cappy worked really hard to play catch up on a lot of back office things, things you got to do in life, like the living will, what's it called? The thing where the camera goes up your ass, all that other stuff, right? Getting everything I should out of the way. Well, now I get to benefit from that, and I have a little bit more free time to pursue some things I didn't have time for before. One of the things I wanted to start doing is highlighting some of the work of people that I look up to in respect to share with you guys. Because otherwise, I don't know if these people would be known. I'm kind of the media now, right? I have a significant following on the internet, and I wanted to share some of the great works of these people. The first person I want to start with today is a guy called Sammy Roth, and I want to read his article from the Los Angeles Times. It's titled How White and Affluent Drivers Are Polluting the Air Breathed by LA's People of Color. So this is some quality journalism work I just wanted to read. It says here, this story originally published in Boiling Point, a weekly newsletter about climate change and the environment. Sign up here to get it in your inbox. Like many Angelenos, I spend a lot of time behind the wheel of my car. I drive from my West Side apartment to Dodger Stadium near downtown and farther east to hike in the San Gabriel Mountains. I take the 405 freeway north to the San Fernando Valley to see friends, or occasionally south to LA to the LA Times office, or to the airport where I grow my carbon footprint even further. So I couldn't help but consider my own complicity while reading a new study from USC researchers. This is academic studies, University of Southern California. That way, you know it's legit, it's peer-reviewed, finding that Angelenos who drive more tend to be exposed to less air pollution. And Angelenos who drive less tend to be exposed to more pollution. I'm glad we spent money on that to figure that out. It may sound like a paradox, but it's not. It's a function of the racism that shaped the city and its suburbs and continues to influence our daily lives, and a stark reminder of the need for climate solutions that benefit everyone. My colleague, Terry Castleman, wrote about the study, which was published in the peer-reviewed, it's peer-reviewed, journal Urban Studies. I know you guys subscribe to that as well. The core finding is that for every 1% increase in miles driven to and from work by people who live in a particular part of LA County, there's an estimated 0.62% decrease in the lung-damaging fine particulate matter to which those Angelenos are exposed. How is this possible? I asked the study's lead author, Jeff Boeing, a professor at the University of Southern California's Price School of Public Policy, so a very serious institution in the social sciences. He told me it largely comes down to the shameful history of Los Angeles County's low-income communities of color being torn apart to make for freeways, a history that has been extensively documented by the Times. Today, many residents of the county's wider, more affluent suburbs, who are often able to keep highways out of their own backyards, commute to work through lower-income Black and Latino neighborhoods, bisected by the 10, 110, and 105 freeways and more. It's not like commuters are coming in and shopping in these communities, patronizing restaurants, Boeing said. They're just driving through to get from one side of the city to the other. Southern California has some of the nation's worst air quality. Cars and trucks are one of the main reasons why, and the closer you are to the source, the more danger you face. Whenever I move, I insist on finding an apartment that at least 1,000 feet away from the nearest freeway. After reading an LA Times investigation revealing that people who live near freeways suffer higher rates of asthma, heart attacks, strokes, lung cancer, pre-birth, preterm births and potentially other illnesses such as dementia. And I trust the LA Times did a good and authentic and thorough and honest investigation. Boeing has gone a step further, taking an air quality monitor with him when he and his wife were looking for a new home a few years ago. He got one of his highest readings for particulate matter near the 101 freeway in Echo Park. I have a small child. I try as hard as I can to avoid air pollution, he said. Boeing's family moved to South Pasadena. Is that a nice area? The ultimate suburban flight story, as he put it, and a place with a terrible racial history. Residents of the relatively affluent, predominantly white city were able to block construction of the 710 freeway throughout their neighborhoods. As a result, he told me, truck traffic from the ports of LA and Long Beach ends up routing through lower income neighborhoods, and Alhambra, a city whose population is overwhelmingly Asian and Latino. Boeing is acutely aware that he and his wife and son are the beneficiaries. I absolutely love that there are no freeways anywhere near us, he said. As a white guy who's lived on LA's west side for most of my life, I've benefited from the region's sordid history as well. Much as I try to do my part, taking the train a couple times a month, walking to local coffee shops and restaurants instead of driving across the city, there's no question I contribute to the inequitable air pollution that Boeing's study describes. Man, it's tough. That's tough living with that fact. But at least you recognize it. I was especially struck by this map from the study. The red areas are places in LA County where commuters tend to be whiter than people who live there. The blue areas are places where commuters tend to be less white than the people who live there. And there's a map. I'm not familiar with the LA Metro to know what this map tells me. Indeed, my drive to Dodger Stadium on the 10 freeway mostly takes me through red areas. At the same time, it's interesting to note that long stretches surrounding the 405 and 105 freeways are blue, largely a function of geography, Boeing said, with urban planners having no choice but to route those highways through narrow passes in the Santa Monica Mountains. Overall, though, the map shows how residents of whiter, wealthier communities disproportionately drive to work through lower income Latino and Black neighborhoods, spewing pollution. Residents of those neighborhoods can't do much about it. Well, I'm all for working remote if you got a white collar job. That would kind of solve all the problems now, wouldn't it? If you want to be exposed to less pollution, you can't be the change you want to see in the world, Boeing said. It's up to everybody else who's taking advantage of public infrastructure and releasing tailpipe emissions. Boeing was careful to note that the study doesn't conclusively prove that patterns and how Los Angelinos get to work are solely responsible for different levels of air pollution in different communities. Majority white West Side neighborhoods, for instance, could also be benefiting from ocean breezes that push pollution into predominantly Black and Latino areas, he said. But the researchers' close examination of driving patterns, commute distance, I'm glad we got researchers on this, commute distances and pollution, which involve the combination of data analysis and modeling, painted a clear picture of environmental injustice, Boeing said. In addition to the link between air quality and miles driven, his team found that non-white communities face higher pollution levels across the board. So what do solutions look like? Getting more people into electric cars is definitely one of them. Another USC study published last month found that as more people drive zero-emission cars in California, fewer people are being sent to emergency rooms due to asthma, at least in areas where people are buying and leasing those cleaner vehicles. Governor Gavin Newsom has set a goal of ending the sale of most gasoline vehicles by 2035. What about telecommuting? I got the switch right here. The climate bill signed by President Biden, though, could replicate that effort. As the Times' Russ Mitchell explains, the Inflation Reduction Act is set to phase out federal tax credits for electric cars that aren't built in the U.S., at least a temporary obstacle for some automakers. Regardless, switching from oil to electricity won't solve everything, as Boeing's study notes. Electric vehicles still produce harmful air pollution. You're right, there's no winning. Thomas Sowell, an economist, no doubt you agree with, author of this piece, he said there are no solutions, only trade-offs. You're right. Electric vehicles still produce harmful air pollution via dust from brake pads and toxic chemicals in tires. And cars of all kinds could kill pedestrians and drivers. Policymakers would help limit the need for long commutes, Boeing and his co-authors wrote, by offering tax credits to incentivize working from home and charging congestion taxes to make driving more expensive, an idea being studied by LA County. Researchers also called for government to allow more apartment construction in wealthier neighborhoods to make it easier for low-income families to live closer to where they work instead of far-off enclaves burdened by freeway pollution. Building more public transit could also make a difference, but Boeing suggested that Southern California officials focus on buses more than trains because the region's sprawling suburbs often don't lend themselves well to commuter rail. It's hard to say that those hundreds of dollars in rail investment are really going to work when they aren't when they're hundreds of dollars. I mean hundreds of millions of dollars uh, are really going to work when there aren't that many people within walking distance of those stations. He said buses need to be a more central part of the solution to Los Angeles because you can provision hundreds of buses with frequent service for far less money than one train. Unfortunately for public transportation fans, Newsom has proposed $2 billion in budget cuts for transit projects that critics say would make it even harder for local transit agencies already struggling with low ridership. Why is it low ridership? You need I think an education program to educate people about the benefits of riding public transportation would help. So, and then you can get the multiplier effect to help the local economy and decrease revenues coming out of the pandemic to attract and retain riders. Newsom is due to release a revised budget proposal in May. It's hard to say. No, I already read that. I realize it's not on my shoulders alone to make up for a long history of racist housing policies and freeway construction. The same goes for you. If you've also benefited from that history, finding ways to minimize and reverse ongoing inequities while solving the climate crisis is a project for all of society, government, industry, and individuals alike. So now I don't want to read the remaining half of this article. I will leave that for you guys to read. But you look up Sammy Roth. Hang on. How white drivers spew, and let me get it up here. Let me get the official title. How white and affluent drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color, the racist history of Los Angeles. And you can follow Sammy Roth on oh, he's on Blue Sky. I thought he was on, that's his Blue Sky. He's got 8,100 followers on Blue Sky. Wonder how many he has on Twitter. Well, he doesn't. Oh, here it is. X. He has 36,000. Very well followed. Very well followed. I think you guys should subscribe to him and read more of what he has to say. But I just want to highlight some of that great work done by Sammy Roth. See if we got any super chats. We have no super chats. All right. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.